999ers risk their lives every day keeping us safe.
You're putting yourself out there to help other people at their most precious time of need.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
Their house is on fire and they're attacking us.
I was standing up with her hands around my throat.
No. These personal attacks on police, paramedics and firefighters are at an all-time high.
He's telling me I'm going to kill your wife and I'm going to kill your family and I'm going to kill you.
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
How do you come to terms with knowing that you can't go and do the job that you love?
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice, our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
We kept people safe, we put away the bad guys.
I'm not going to let some man ruin it for me. This is my future, this is what I enjoy doing.
Ready to face the next critical incident. Knife crime in England and Wales is at an all-time high, with more than 46,000 incidents in the year ending March 2020.
Knife crime is an epidemic in this country. It's a real worrying trend that we're seeing out there, where life is so cheap.
Dealing with knives and related violent crime is now part of the job for almost every frontline officer.
Get out! All right, calm down.
For me, it's that spontaneity and the ease for which you can go and arm yourself with a knife and the consequences and the fatal consequences that can follow.
Coming up in this critical incident knife crime special. Out on the streets with Essex Police's dedicated knife crime task force, Operation Sceptre.
Everything from the kitchen knife to the zombie knives to the samurai sword. And also we know that obviously not one type is the fatal type.
In London, a Metropolitan Police officer is the victim of a vicious knife crime attack.
The moment you carry a knife, you're just asking for trouble, because you make a split-second decision that can change the rest of your life or end your life.
Put the knife down now!
And a groundbreaking scheme led by West Midlands Police aims to educate young people on the consequences of knife crime.
This is a real issue. We've seen it nationally. We know it continues to be a problem. And just remember, 30 seconds, that's all it takes to ruin your life.
In Essex, like many parts of the country, knife crime is on the rise. In the year ending March 2020, over 1,000 crimes involving knives and sharp instruments were reported, a 51% increase on 2019.
What we deal with daily is that the carrying of knife to facilitate an offence. So be it the drug dealing probably is the outlier. So the carrying of the knife for that offender will be to secure the commodity for them, and the commodity being the drug. And also it's a status symbol for them, which balls out as part of that criminality. And so I think that's probably the more in-depth and harder to crack.
But Essex Police are fighting back. Last year they launched Operation Sceptre, a targeted crackdown on knife crime. In the first 8 months of the operation, Essex Police confiscated over 400 knives.
Operation Sceptre for us here in Essex looks at the prevent side of what we do here, so in terms of stopping people carrying knives, trying to look at diversion techniques with those that we think are most harm, also at most risk of going into that type of activity. And then the second part is really the here and now, and actually it's that crime suppression in our chronic areas where we see knife crime.
As part of the operation, teams of police officers carry out regular weapon sweeps and random stop and search patrols.
Okay, right, the briefing site for Operation Sceptre, which is tackling violent and knife crime in the Epping Forest district.
Tonight, the team are targeting 2 vehicles on which they have existing intelligence.
The intelligence on that suggests the registered keeper and the driver is carrying a knife when he's inside there in that vehicle. Bear in mind the officer's safety around that. Again, that's activating the ANPR cameras. The second one is the missing vehicle that we're already aware of. Again, that's been pinging cameras that pinged 2 days ago. It's not been very active since then. But obviously there's a vehicle priority. If we see that, we get that stopped tonight as well. Yep. Okay, thank you. Stay safe.
This body-worn footage shows Operation Sceptre in action at a previous incident.
Yeah, I've got him.
Several units are responding to reports of an individual with a machete who has randomly attacked a teenage boy. Luckily, he wasn't seriously injured. The suspect is traced to a known address. He's surrounded and quickly arrested. He was found to be carrying these potentially lethal weapons. The suspect admitted grievous bodily harm, criminal damage, and possession of an offensive weapon in a public place. He was sentenced to 2 years and 3 months in prison. This is the type of criminal that Operation Sceptre is keeping off the streets. But this evening, the team is using intelligence to target specific individuals.
Tonight's operation is using local officers as well as our operational support group, focusing on individuals as well as and also vehicles that we believe are responsible for habitual knife carrying or linked to crimes of serious violence. That might be people who are going out to steal cars, who obviously habitually carry weapons to facilitate that crime, and we'll hopefully have a number of stop checks, a number of interactions with people that hopefully we're looking for as part of the deployment.
One of the tools that the team has at their disposal is a network of ANPR, or automatic number plate recognition cameras.
The joys of the system is any force that uploads a vehicle, it will hit our cameras as well. So it's a national system, and so obviously being so close to London and to Hertfordshire, having those cameras that are ideally positioned on the main arteries of coming out of obviously London and Hertfordshire. I've also got our current storm incident, which is our database, which basically carries all our 999 calls, so we can get an early heads up to anything that's coming in that's suspicious, anyone obviously acting out of sorts in the area, or any sort of violent related incidents that we can respond to, and making it a hostile environment, really.
The team is notified that a nearby ANPR camera has picked up a car being driven by a man they suspect is carrying a knife.
This is the Mini that was part of the briefing earlier. It's just been stopped, and obviously the intelligence on this one was that the driver carried a knife within the vehicle when he's out. So they're just hopefully stop that now, and they're just hopefully going through the process of searching him and the vehicle, just to obviously sound out the intelligence that we've got on our system.
Yeah, thank you.
While the driver of the Mini is questioned, his car is searched to see if he's concealing a weapon.
The key thing is just to try and to spot out the initial intelligence, which is obviously the biggest threat, which was the fact that they believe there to be a knife in the vehicle.
After a thorough search, no weapons are found. However, they do find cannabis in the car.
So yeah, there's no weapon found in the vehicle. We've been found in possession of cannabis anyway. He's just going for a drug swipe now in terms of his driving. Obviously, if he's got cannabis on him, again, that'll take about 8 minutes to come back in terms of a result, and we'll see what the outcome of that is.
After just a few minutes, the result is positive for cannabis, and the suspect is arrested for driving under the influence of drugs.
You're under arrest on suspicion of drug driving, which is Section 5A of the Road Traffic Act. You don't have to say anything but may harm your defence. If you didn't mention one question, something which you may later rely on in court, anything decent may be given in evidence. All right.
So now, obviously, he's just been arrested for the positive drug swipe. He'll now be taken to custody where a blood test will be taken from him, and obviously the levels of the cannabis within his system will be tested, and obviously the fact he was driving a vehicle, and they'll look at that offence obviously once the results come back.
Later, Operation Scepter tracked down a second vehicle, and this time they find more than cannabis.
He's in possession of a Class A drug, and obviously he's driving a motor vehicle, so the two don't obviously go together.
In recent years, London has experienced a knife crime epidemic.
I'm just going to put you in handcuffs, so I'll save you. Okay.
Last year, almost 16,000 incidents involving knives were reported. Increased numbers of police officers are now targeting specific areas to prevent the establishment of knife crime hotspots.
Rather than waiting for an area to develop into a crime hotspot, we're tackling it pretty much overnight. So my day job, I'd come in, look at the overnight trends for the last 24 hours in terms of violence and robbery, and task people into those areas immediately to prevent them becoming longer-term hotspots.
In October 2019, the Metropolitan Police pulled over a van driver on suspicion of driving without insurance.
Where are you going?
But the driver is not cooperating with the police and returns to his van. As the police attempt to stop the driver from escaping, a violent struggle ensues.
Stop fighting, stop resisting.
Suddenly, the van driver produces a large machete and lashes out at the police officer. The police officer retreats, but the van driver lunges towards him, striking him with the machete. The quick-thinking police officer uses his taser to stun the criminal.
I need an ambulance now.
This horrific attack is just one example of an increasing number of incidents involving large hunting knives that police have dealt with.
There's more knives on the street. We are finding more people with knives. And, you know, sometimes it's not even a kitchen knife or a Stanley knife. Sometimes it's one of these big zombie knives, as they're described, you know, these hunting knives. You know, in the heat of the moment, you take that knife out, you don't have to do much to cause serious damage or take someone's life.
Although the brave police officer recovered, he suffered life-threatening injuries, 6 deep head wounds, a fractured skull, and injuries to his hands and arms. The police officer was off work for 5 months, but is lucky to have survived this shocking, unprovoked attack. The offender was convicted of wounding with intent to do grievous bodily harm. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison with a further 3 years on extended licence.
Why people would choose to carry machetes and these zombie knives, you have to ask them. But the moment you carry a knife, you're just asking for trouble. You really are. Because you make a split-second decision that can change the rest of your life or end your life.
In North London, this footage from a CCTV camera shows the moment the police respond to a 999 call. When the caller answers the door, however, there is no sign of an emergency. Instead, the man suddenly produces a knife and begins violently stabbing one of the officers. As 3 of the officers fall onto the street, a 4th officer attempts to control the man, but she too is violently stabbed. Finally, one of the officers tasers the criminal and the attack is brought to an end. A knife with a 23-centimetre blade was recovered after the incident. What seemed like a routine house call became a violent knife attack, demonstrating the unexpected risks that police officers face on a daily basis.
I think the dangers for officers day to day when we're faced with sort of knife crime is that actually a lot of the jobs they go to, it's the spontaneous element of knife crime. It's very easy to go from very subdued, very calm atmosphere to the use of that knife against an officer. For me, it's that spontaneity and the ease for which you can go and arm yourself with a knife, and then obviously the consequences and the fatal consequences that can follow.
All 4 officers were injured in this attack. The attacker was found guilty of 3 counts of wounding with intent and 1 count of attempted wounding with intent. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. On a busy South London street, commuters witness an attack on a driver. A cyclist stops behind a parked car, and a driver pulls out onto the road, almost hitting him before colliding with an oncoming vehicle. The cyclist then reappears with a large zombie knife and starts violently attacking the car. Thankfully, the car's doors are locked, but before long, the attacker manages to smash the passenger window. As other men approach, the driver abandons his car and escapes. The attacker was later identified and arrested. He was convicted of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm, affray, and possession of an offensive weapon in a public place. He was sentenced to 3.5 years in a young offender institution. Still to come, 2 officers are trapped in a suspect's house when he pulls a large kitchen knife on them.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Get out, mate, get out quick. He's got a knife on him, get out.
And an officer is stabbed in a terrifying attack at a convenience store.
421, I've been stabbed in the arm.
Back in Essex, officers are on the road with Operation Sceptre, a specialist team set up to fight knife crime in the county.
We'll have officers deployed across the county. We'll look at, sometimes we will go and actually just target one aspect of the county. One day it will be a burglar who's used a knife, and the next day it'll be around drugs use and drug supply. And the next day it could be somebody that's trying to import a number of flick knives into the UK, which have been stopped at the freight hubs.
Tracking down knife criminals is extremely dangerous work, which is why the officers need a range of protective equipment.
Okay, so we've got the stab vest here, which is obviously resistant to knives and obviously low-level ballistic protection. This piece of kit obviously covers the main vital organs and the vital parts that can really cause damage if it wasn't present. I've been struck by a knife on my body armour. If it certainly hasn't saved my life, it certainly stopped me from having serious injury. We then have the ASP, which is a extendable baton, which officers can use in relation to body mass, but clearly when required, obviously can be used wherever is required, obviously depending on the threat that's posed. We have obviously the incapacitant spray, which is a spray that looks to be sprayed in the upper body area around the facial area. Gives you that sense of disorientation, which obviously gives us that kind of extra few seconds and then the ability for officers to obviously intervene. The next piece of equipment is the rigid handcuffs. These are personally issued to individuals' officers. They're a complete unit. They open up obviously to place the arms within, and they can be double locked, and that obviously then gives protection both to the officer but also the offender, making sure that they don't close in on the offender's arms. The other piece of kit is the individual officers now are issued with body cameras by an Axon body camera. This records both day and night in colour, HD video, and it's clipped onto the body armour of the officer. So it gives you that perception and obviously the visual aspect of where the officer's standing.
As well as all this, Operation Sceptre officers are also equipped with a taser, a handheld device which incapacitates the offender by transmitting a 50,000-volt electric shock.
As part of Operation Sceptre, we have uplifted the use of taser as another tactic. The taser being drawn and being present, the taser being drawn, present, and the use of that taser.
Put the knife down, fella.
This footage shows just how effective even the presence of a taser can be, as South Wales police officers convince an individual to put a knife down by producing a taser. While in this clip, Wiltshire police use tasers to prevent a robber with a knife from harming anyone. And in Gwent, police avert a very dangerous situation by using taser to subdue a man who has lunged at them with 2 kitchen knives. Back on patrol with Operation Scepter, officers receive a call that one of the other patrols is in pursuit of a driver who is acting suspiciously by speeding away from a parked police car.
One of the cars behind a vehicle that took evasive action against another vehicle and darted down some side roads. It's aware that the unit's behind it, and we're just trying to get just another unit behind it, just so we've got enough units there, just in case it does fail to stop, but also so we can get the driver stopped and find out what he was up to when he initially took evasive action when he saw the original marked police car back in Harlow.
Yeah, the vehicle stopped, driver out of the vehicle.
They've got the vehicle stopped now, they're just getting the driver out. So I'm just listening out now to find out what the outcome of it was, and we'll float by and just double check there's no checks required for the vehicle or the driver. If it was just a case of some poor driving earlier, or what the outcome is. Originally, a traffic unit had stopped and arrested somebody at the side of the road in Harlow, and this vehicle saw them and darted off at the same time, and it seemed to react basically to the police presence, I think, thinking it was going to get stopped. We're unsure as to why and what the reason behind the manner of his driving was, and he's just being asked to account for that now, and obviously as well as being subject to a drug swipe as well, just to check that obviously he's not under the influence.
Is that negative as well?
Although the drugs test proves negative, the driver is searched and found to be in possession of 3 small bags of white powder. He is arrested for possession of a Class A drug.
Nice one. So you can just see from the makeup actually of the powder. We think it's cocaine actually. He's in possession of a Class A drug, and obviously he's driving a motor vehicle. So the two don't obviously go together. It's the way that these people drive. It's the telltale signs that we see that obviously resulted in the stop and the positive search as well.
On this occasion, Detective Chief Inspector Basford and his team are dealing with personal possession of a small amount of cocaine. The suspect is not linked to the weapons and violence normally associated with Operation Scepter. However, the team are satisfied that it's a job well done.
When you just look at those 3 wraps in isolation, they've come from a larger quantity and from a dealer, from a supplier. You know, it's not linked to Scepter directly in terms of knife crime and weapons, but it's linked within the same sphere.
Although no weapons were seized on this occasion, as their shift comes to an end, the Operation Scepter team can reflect on a successful evening's work.
For me, it's been a positive result tonight, and as well as obviously the offences that we've seen tonight, we've also had a number of offences in terms of drugs related that have been arrested by our operational support group. So for me, a positive night. And a good result, and it's also good to be out in the community and be visible.
Knife violence is often associated with street crime. So when it happens in the home, it can be all the more shocking, as 2 Cambridgeshire police officers discovered in January 2018, when they responded to a report of a 50-year-old man threatening to end his own life. En route to the man's house, they were informed that the man is wanted by the police for a previous alleged offence.
Hello. Do you want to come in? Come in. Hiya, you alright?
At first, the man is cooperative with police. But as one of the officers arrests him, his mood very quickly changes.
Oh, hello. There's a couple of reasons why we're here. One is that we've got some concerns about you, because I think you've made some threats to your own life. Is that true? No, okay. Also, there's currently an investigation ongoing in relation to some allegations that have been made against you. Okay? We'll have to discuss that all down at the police station. All right, but at the minute, what I need to say to you is that at the minute I'm going to be arresting you on suspicion of kidnap. Okay, so you do not have to say anything about it may harm your defence. If you do not mention one question, so it would say trial in court, and if you do say maybe given an evidence. Do you understand? If you just stand up for me a minute and I can explain that all to you when we get to the police station.
Kidnap who?
Okay, listen. I don't know.
No, who did that? Kidnap.
The man becomes extremely aggressive and attacks the arresting officer.
Get what did I kidnap?
Get off me!
Get off me!
He then disappears into the kitchen and produces a large knife.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
As he runs towards the other officer, he is quickly tasered and immediately falls to the ground.
Do not move your hands! Do not move your hands! Handcuff him! Do not move your hands! You're still attached to taser!
Thanks to these quick-thinking police officers, a major incident was avoided. The offender pleaded guilty to attempted escape from lawful custody and 2 counts of assault with intent to resist apprehension. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison.
I'm sorry.
The 2 police officers involved were nominated for awards for their actions and bravery in this attack.
You've got somebody in front of you who wants to cause you harm. So sometimes you'll have to fight for your life. It doesn't look pretty, but sometimes that's exactly what's needed. I'd rather my colleagues be well prepared, well equipped and well trained rather than go to another police officer's funeral.
In Nottingham, officers have arrived at a man's home to arrest him and bring him into custody to be questioned.
Come on, listen. Let's be like gentlemen, okay? And let's get this sorted properly, okay? We don't need to...
Initially, the situation appears to be under control, but as the man is getting changed, things turn nasty.
Get it sorted, okay? So let's get some clothes on. We'll get you down to the custody block and we can sort it from there, mate. Okay.
Get out!
The man suddenly produces a kitchen knife and threatens the 2 police officers.
All right, calm down.
Fearing for their safety, the officers taser the man and he is immobilised.
Male's pulled a knife on us, we have to taser him.
In court, the offender admitted a fray. He was sentenced to 18 weeks in prison. Urban centres all over the UK have seen a surge in knife-related crime. In 2019, the criminal justice system dealt with the highest number of knife and offensive weapon offences since 2009. West Midlands Police cover the major city of Birmingham and the surrounding urban areas. Latest statistics from here reveal that the police dealt with over 5,000 offences involving a knife in the last year. For officers on patrol in Birmingham city centre, the threat of knife crime is never far from their minds.
We've had a log come in that says a couple of yous had a knife, not too far from the station actually. Knife crime it's happening more often, you know, throughout the country, but it's in this line of work, whenever you hear the word knife, you know, whenever it's mentioned, you do get a little bit more worried, basically. We worry, just because we walk around in shiny uniforms doesn't mean we're less worried than anybody else. Yeah, I have a bit more protection than maybe, you know, another member of the public, but it still worries me. I still come to work and I hear an incident where a mention of a knife, and it does still worry me. It does, still scares you. The word scared is not something that we should be scared to say. You can be scared in this job quite easily. We had an incident not too long ago where a few youths had turned up at a local shop and they'd had a bit of disorder inside and they'd smashed a few items from the shelves, a few bottles of alcohol, I think, and then they'd made off from the area on a bus. We followed the bus, tracked down the bus, stopped it, and there was a few youths that matched the description that got off the bus straight away. We've then ended up having an altercation, a physical fight with these lads that have got off the bus. And we've ended up taking them to the floor and they've been handcuffed. And once searched, it was a 10-inch kitchen knife had been found down the coat of one of the lads. It really brings home that you have to be constantly on your guard about any job can change at any time and it can be anything.
This footage shows the types of incidents West Midlands Police have to respond to. The offender is brandishing 2 knives outside an apartment block in Birmingham city centre. After several warnings, police deploy their taser and the man immediately falls to the ground. The offender pleaded guilty to 2 charges of possessing a bladed article. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison. In response to the rise of knife crime in their area, West Midlands Police have adopted a proactive approach to educating young people in local schools about the dangers of knife crime.
Today we're going to give you a few messages about knife crime. Everything we're going to discuss today and we're going to watch is all real life. So the purpose today is to demonstrate a change in tact. It's around us trying to get a message across. We accept now that police officers in uniform coming into schools is not necessarily working. We've seen a national rise in knife crime, particularly in the under-25s. We have to be honest that what's going on and how we're educating at the moment is not working, because we're seeing that increase still nationally around people carrying knives and the use of knives. And that's why we're trying to get into schools across the West Midlands, deliver these presentations to try and help with that educational piece, so we see the benefits in the future.
I've been in jail 4 years, and since I've been in jail...
In this groundbreaking project, officers show pupils an interview with a local teenager who was given a life sentence for murder when he fatally stabbed Lucas Firmanek in 2015.
He was out in the middle of the night and he was out with an older lad when they came across 2 lads who were walking back from a night out, a lad by the name of Lucas and a lad by the name of Joseph. Within 30 seconds, Lucas had been stabbed 15 times. Joseph was stabbed several times. And it was only for the really good skills of the medical team that happened to be nearby that Joseph survived. Otherwise, Lucas and Joseph would have died that night, and that would have been a double murder.
It's not even just about me, it's about the person that lost his life as well. What about his family? The person that died, that was his mom's only child, and that child is not there anymore. He's gone, the mom doesn't have a child anymore. So obviously it's about them as well. And it's not nice because having to live with the feeling that I've taken a life.
I think one of the clear things for me about when we come into schools and we do this presentation is that the children are fixated around Saddam's video. They engage really well with it, they digest it. It's somebody who's talking to them on a level at the same age, and the understanding and the kind of wider impact it's had on him, his family, and the other people that are involved in that.
I've been in jail 4 years, and since I've been in jail, I've had a little sister, I've had a niece and a nephew.
The locality of this school is quite close to where some of those offences took place as well, so it's quite hard hitting for the children. You know, they will have heard of these areas, they may well have visited them as well, so they'll have a clear indication in their minds of, you know, the location, the scenes, and it's around us trying to get those messages across.
But because of what I'm going through, I don't want nobody else to go through it, and sometimes it's hard for people to understand that because they don't really know nobody that's going through it. Because I'm going through it, I don't want you to go through it. That's the only reason I'm telling you not to carry a knife.
All of this involves people's lives and it has a massive impact. Saddam, when he comes out, who's going to want to employ a murderer? Who is going to want to have him, you know, as a partner? Who is going to want to have him in their family? Keep those thoughts. Keep the thoughts of the stuff we've gone through, and just remember 30 seconds, that's all it takes to ruin your life. We still see knife crime, but also we are seeing this mentality that it's okay to carry knives, a straightforward possession, police officers interacting with people, finding them in possession of knives. So that this is a real issue. We've seen it nationally. We know it continues to be a problem. But this is not just a policing issue, it's an educational issue, which is why we're coming in, we're working with schools, we're working with partner agencies to try and assist us in that reduction.
Knife crime has a devastating effect on its victims, including police officers. In Hartlepool, PC Mick Johnson of Cleveland Police suffered from PTSD after a horrific incident involving a man armed with a knife.
The full report was, there's a male acting very strangely up at a parade of shops. So I made my way there, on blue lights with the sirens going.
Last year, Cleveland Police dealt with more knife and weapon offences per head of population than any other police force in the country. But little did Mick know the incident he was heading to would come into that category.
So I made my way to the shop. Bear in mind, this time we do have body-worn cameras, so my body-worn camera went on.
421 arrived.
As I get to the door, two young girls come walking out rather quickly. A little bit scared, but they're also they were laughing as well, giggling as if to say, ooh, there's a weirdo in there.
Are you all right, Mara?
I walked in the shop. A shopkeeper's, she stood behind a counter, and there's a male stood in front of the counter, and he's got half a bottle of wine.
What's happening, mate? What's your name first? What's your name? All right, stand here. Stand here.
At one point, he came towards me, because he could see my radio going off, and he was going, can I make a phone call on that?
Calm yourself down. Right, steady.
No, I said, can I just press?
No, mate. Not allowed to. Not allowed to. Not allowed to, mate.
He started shouting at me, and he was rambling. I was asking him, look, tell me what the problem is.
Like, everything was fine.
Has everything got to you a wee bit, has it, mate? I just want to help you.
As Mick tries to calm the man down, at first he seems cooperative. But it's not long before he becomes extremely volatile.
No, there's another one on the way. Are you going to come and have a chat with me or what?
No, go outside.
No, I'm not going outside, mate. I can't leave you like this, not in this state.
30 seconds later, he just reached into his pocket, his jacket pocket, and pulls out this kitchen knife.
I am. 421, he's got a knife. More units here now, please. Get back now. Let's just spray you.
Brought me incapacitating spray out, and he's being extremely aggressive. And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble here.
Right, put the knife down, it's not worth it. Put the knife down! Get out, mate, and get out quick. He's got a knife on him, get out. Put the knife down, man! Put the knife.
We do get trained to react to knife incidents, but when one actually happens like that, your training does kick in, but so does the fear.
As Mick is forced to back away, the shopkeeper is left trapped inside the shop.
Put the knife down!
I've never done this!
Put it down!
I didn't do it! I've never done this!
Right, well, come outside and put the knife down, come on, now!
He then closed the shop door. So I'm outside, he's inside, he's got a knife, and there's a member of the public in there.
As Mick attempts to open the door, the offender reaches out and stabs him.
421, I've been stabbed in the arm. Move back, mate. Get back, please.
He then comes back outside the shop and starts, again, just talking absolute nonsense.
Come back now! Get back!
Mick's request for backup has been picked up, and several officers are soon on the scene.
Get a
3 of my colleagues turned up. 2 of them used the spray again on him. The 3rd one tasered him. When the 3 guys arrived, I was like, oh, God for that. So relieved. I thought it was about 5 minutes wait. It was 2 2-minute wait. From him producing that knife to those guys arriving, it was 2 minutes. And that's rapid. I couldn't ask for anything. I couldn't have asked for any quicker response than that.
As his colleagues detain the suspect, Mick falls to the ground.
It hurt, no doubt about it. Although the cut itself wasn't big, it was only a 2-centimetre cut. It did go straight into the bone virtually.
The offender was found guilty of actual bodily harm, possession of an offensive weapon and a fray. He was sentenced to 8 months in prison, suspended for 2 years. He was also ordered to carry out 30 days of rehabilitation and pay a £140 victim surcharge. Although Mick escaped serious physical injuries, this shocking incident had a significant long-term impact. Mick was diagnosed with PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder.
All I can remember is I was really tired. I wasn't sleeping. It didn't matter what time I went to bed at night. I was up at 4 o'clock. I was awake at 4 o'clock every morning without fail.
Tea or coffee?
Have tea, please. Probably withdrew into myself a little bit. I certainly don't remember being snappy with any of my family or shouting at them in any shape, way or form, but apparently I did, and I didn't remember that. I would say I'm probably now not quite there still, but getting there. Us talking about it all the time has helped.
I knew that Michael needed me to be strong and be there and, you know, make sure he was okay. It's horrible to see somebody normally so strong have those defences knocked down a little bit and that they need some help. You don't like to think that of anybody that you love. It's hard, it is hard, because I just want it all to go away.
I just want to get rid of this now, put it right behind me and just get on with my life.
Mick still occasionally battles with PTSD, but despite this, he continues to do the job he loves.
It's still a fantastic job to do. We are still highly respected by the vast majority of the public, but obviously you're going to get the ones who don't like us. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to protect people. I'm here to protect the property. I'm here to save lives at the end of the day. As long as I can keep doing that, I'll be happy.
ers risk their lives every day keeping us safe.
You're putting yourself out there to help other people at their most precious time of need.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
Their house is on fire and they're attacking us.
I was standing up with her hands around my throat.
These personal attacks on police, paramedics and firefighters are at an all-time high.
He's telling me, I'm going to kill your wife and I'm going to kill your family and I'm going to kill you.
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
How do you come to terms with knowing that you can't go and do the job that you love?
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice, our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
We kept people safe. We put away the bad guys.
I'm not going to let some man ruin it for me. This is my future. This is what I enjoy doing.
Ready to face the next critical incident. Coming up.
COVID-19 is real. People are dying. Please move away. Thank you.
The COVID-19 pandemic brings fresh dangers for emergency service workers.
I don't understand why people will assault people who are there just to help them.
A surge in coughing attacks.
We're now having officers that are coughed at. They're now using COVID as a tactic not to be arrested.
And how groundbreaking research into the psychology of crowds assists officers in policing protests effectively.
What you're trying to promote is a policing environment where people in the crowd start to work on the side of the police.
In March 2020, Britain faced its biggest crisis in a generation.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades. All over the world, we're seeing the devastating impact of this invisible killer.
Assaults on police and emergency service workers began to rise. One form of these sinister assaults was a threat of infection with the coronavirus.
Neil, I'll start coughing you in your face.
He's got no respect for anyone in there. He's going to get corona and die.
Stop doing that.
What? Have corona?
Doing behaviour like that. I swear to God.
I have got it. Ask the doctors.
Brave. Look that way. I swear to God.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, you've got corona now then. Yeah. You're going to have that now. You're going to have caught that.
Come on.
Yep.
Interestingly, during the lockdown, assaults on emergency workers, primarily police officers, but it did include paramedics and others, assaults on them increased. And what we saw was more people coughing at emergency workers and saying, I hope you die from this virus, weaponising what is a deadly virus.
During COVID, obviously, we have seen a change in terms of our officer assaults and also sort of the general way in which sort of the public are engaging with us. It's been a fantastic response generally. Unfortunately, that minority, they react and they alter the way that they offend in line with the circumstances that they're within. So we're now having officers that are coughed at. They're now using COVID as a tactic not to be arrested, to try not to be arrested, to try and evade capture by saying, I've got COVID, and it's then obviously then what precautions we put in place for our officers. But we're not allowing the offenders to win. Whatever's thrown at us from a policing point of view, we can cope with, and actually we can keep justice on the road.
In Manchester, keeping justice on the road was not an easy task. In the first 2 months of lockdown, Greater Manchester Police experienced a staggering 170 assaults on their officers.
Why are you trying to hold the cuffs? You really got to go tough on there.
We've got to hold the cuffs.
In this clip from March of this year, 2 officers from Greater Manchester Police are arresting a man and placing him in handcuffs.
Why are you coughing him? Why are you coughing in your face?
Because you're holding me so tight.
Why are you coughing?
I'm holding so tight.
116. Oh, you've done it now.
Yes. You're holding me so tight, I can't breathe.
Just let you know, this guy's coughing in my face on purpose.
This offender pleaded guilty to 2 counts of assault and 1 count of assault on an emergency service worker. He was sentenced to 20 weeks in prison.
How am I getting arrested?
Because there's been an allegation that you've gone at him with a knife and also damaged his car.
In South Tyneside in April, Northumbria police officers are arresting a woman on suspicion of assault and causing damage to a car.
Been arrested, all right? Now, well, let us investigate what's gone on there, right? In the meantime...
Ow, my head!
Yeah, sit yourself down. What I'll say to you is... right, you're going on like that, and I swear to God you're going to jail.
The woman pleaded guilty to assault of an emergency service worker and other offences. She was sentenced to 21 weeks in prison.
We've heard of people now coughing at officers, and I think with coronavirus it's given them an added weapon. It is a concern, but it's something that we just have to deal with as and when.
Who's holding on to it, fellas? Oh, right.
No, don't spit.
This footage is from late March 2020 and shows Kent Police arresting a man for suspected shoplifting. After spitting at one of the officers, the suspect is immobilised and a spit hood is placed over his head.
Just calm down, please, mate. Don't get off, please, mate.
I've got corona.
Oh, don't break off.
I've got corona.
The offender pleaded guilty to 2 counts of assaulting an emergency service worker, theft and criminal damage. He was sentenced to 120 days in prison.
Policing during this pandemic has been, I mean, if it wasn't real, you'd think it was a film. I've been in the job 27 years. I'd never have imagined that policing would be doing what the government asked us to do.
Emergency service workers all over the UK faced an unprecedented challenge.
When the pandemic first started, what went through all of our minds really was, how big is it going to get? How much of a problem is it going to be? Will it affect our families? Will it affect people that we know with crew? And how would we be able to interact with the patients and take care of them without catching it ourselves?
The government rushed through emergency powers to enforce the lockdown, restricting when people could leave their homes and banning gatherings. In the first month of the lockdown, crime fell sharply by 28%. However, police were now being asked to enforce the lockdown rules and investigate alleged breaches of the emergency laws.
During the pandemic, I have seen a change in policing. There was quite a big dip in call demand. There wasn't as many people out on the street. There wasn't as many calls coming into us. There obviously wasn't any nighttime economy, nightclubs, bars, restaurants, that sort of thing. So we didn't see any sort of crimes along those lines. However, we have been receiving a lot of calls from members of the public with concerns for COVID breaches, where people were having parties or gatherings when they shouldn't be. So that was something that was quite alien to us because it's not something that we've ever dealt with before.
Guys, you can't stay on the green. Can you all go home?
In this footage taken on the first day of the lockdown in March 2020, Metropolitan Police officers in West London are clearing Shepherd's Bush Green of sunbathers and walkers.
Can you all go home, please? It's not a holiday. It's a lockdown, which means you don't just come in and sunbathe. Can you please just leave?
Our model of policing is policing by consent. We're not a military police service. We police the public because we are the public, and long may that continue. There was a real risk during this pandemic that would change, which is why it was so important that this engage and explain approach was made.
For many, emergency staff work became more dangerous than ever, with the new deadly yet invisible threat of COVID-19.
I think before this pandemic, we didn't really realise or take into consideration the amount of people that we do come into contact with or the amount of houses that we do go and visit. I think when initially lockdown started, it was quite worrying to think of the amount of people that we do come into contact with and the increased chances of us coming into contact with the virus. Usually we'd speak quite closely to people, but now we've got to be at least 2 metres apart from them. And also we don't always have the opportunity to be able to stand back. Sometimes we have to get hands-on with people straight away, which can be quite concerning because we obviously don't know whether that person's got corona.
During the national lockdown, police often had to put themselves in danger to keep us safe, as they worked to prevent people from breaching the public health orders. Here in Birmingham, West Midlands Police were no exception. In this footage from an officer's body-worn camera, police are called to a street party in Birmingham where more than 100 people have gathered.
Good evening, people. How are we doing? Charge. Who's in charge? Anyone in charge?
No one's in charge.
No one's in charge?
No, it's
Go on, try. I'm listening. It's a social gathering, is it?
No, it's not a social gathering at all.
Oh, okay.
We were all learning as we went, but I think we had the right motives and the right intentions, and it was all about keeping people as safe as possible. And I was really relieved with the interaction with the public because they were thanking us for what we were doing. I'm not saying it's like that every day. There have been some real difficulties, and the longer the lockdown went on and then the messages were changing from government, we started to see the public more and more disregard the rules, and that put more pressure on policing.
Good evening, folks. How you doing? Is everyone enjoying themselves? Okay. Well, this gathering needs to stop now, so if you can make your way out the cul-de-sac, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. Who lives here? We all live here. Okay, well, this is a gathering that cannot happen under the current COVID-19 legislation and restrictions. COVID-19 rules, yeah. So the reason we are here is to provide safety for people. And by doing that, we need to disperse this group and go about your business. All right, folks, thank you very much for your time and your patience. But this organisation, this gathering needs to stop. For all the best. Enjoy the sun elsewhere. Thank you.
The officers use their powers of persuasion to disperse the crowd. And after several minutes, the partygoers leave the area with no arrests made or fines imposed.
Folks, engagement, okay? Engagement. Get chatting to them, get them moving, engagement. COVID-19 is real, people are dying. Please move away. Thank you. Yeah, I think this crowd's sufficiently dispersed, all the vehicles have left.
Policing this pandemic has been tough, it's been really difficult. Some of the mixed messages from government hasn't helped. The nighttime economy, so the pubs, clubs and bars, which is a big source of work for police officers, has gone. Overnight that went. So our priority moved to policing the open spaces for COVID, domestic violence. You know, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, so we were doing so much work, not only policing but other agencies, to try and reach out to people who were the most vulnerable.
In the midst of the coronavirus crisis, police faced another major challenge when one of the most significant protests in recent history took place in several UK cities and around the world. The death of George Floyd in police custody in Minnesota sparked mass demonstrations attended by thousands of people. Keeping demonstrations peaceful and ensuring the safety of demonstrators, as well as the officers policing them, is a top priority.
Public order policing can be really tough, and we have tactics available. You know, in certain areas we have police horses, police dogs in every force area used to great effect.
Many UK police forces are developing new techniques for policing and managing crowds with the help of this man, Professor Clifford Stott of Keele University.
I study how crowds behave and try to understand the psychology that leads to that behaviour.
Professor Stott's experience of crowd dynamics goes back over 30 years.
I started to go along to multiple crowd events and watch them transform. And the one that was most important for me in that regard was the 1990 poll tax riot. I was on that demonstration from start to finish, and it transitioned into one of the largest riots of the 20th century. But that transition couldn't really be understood without taking into account what the police did. This wasn't just about crowd psychology, it was about how crowd psychology is affected by the way a crowd is policed. And where the police get that wrong, it can contribute a great deal to the psychological change that precipitates a riot. The police are a powerful group. They've got the legislation around them, they've got the resources, they've got the weaponry to impose their view on the crowd. But in the imposition of that, through their action, they change the context for the crowd. And it's that change in context that feeds into the change in the crowd psychology that produces the riot. So it's all about power.
After many years of research, Professor Stott concluded that a key factor in crowds turning violent can be how the police behave and how they handle hostile situations.
It's really difficult message to understand because immediately the assumption is, oh, hang on a minute, you're blaming the police. But that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is helping to understand from a scientific perspective the dynamics through which peaceful crowds can become disorderly. And what we now know through extensive study is that a very important factor in that transition is the style and pattern of policing.
This research has led to major changes in policing of large crowds. And in recent years, a more modern collaborative approach has been adopted.
So now what we have in the UK are things like police officers who are called police liaison officers, who work in crowd events to build trust and dialogue with people in the crowd. Also, police commanders have a different strategic understanding where they're far more aware now of the potential negative role that policing can play in the production of violence. There's still a long way to go, but certainly we're in a much better place now than we were 10 years ago.
The events of early 2020, however, put policing operations under renewed and intense scrutiny.
We're in a very, very difficult time now with COVID and the impact that the disease is having on different communities. And into the mix then you get an event like the death of George Floyd. It flows into a mobilisation of people. They mobilise and as a crowd end up in a circumstance where you have a group of people who pull over a statue in a city like Bristol, and the statue being the statue of the most prolific slave trader in human history. And then you have a police commander who has to make a decision about whether he's going to intervene against that crowd or not. We're now not seeing police commanders thinking crowds are irrational, but understanding that crowds look at the world from a particular point of view. So for me, that was just a really good example of how getting policing right works.
Still to come, another form of a nasty attack on police officers.
There are these vile, disgusting creatures out there who they resort to spitting.
And a paramedic is the victim of an assault during the pandemic.
All of a sudden, the gentleman just started lashing out, punching and kicking.
In cities and towns all over the UK, assaults on police officers are sadly on the increase. Latest statistics show a rise of 18% in a 12-month period.
I'm sorry, I can't. 421, I've been stabbed in the arm.
In England and Wales, there were more than 10,400 assaults causing injury to police officers from April 2019 to April 2020. Latest figures also show almost 20,000 attacks on emergency service workers in a 12-month period.
An assault on a police officer is an assault on society. It's really important that it is not acceptable in any way, shape or form.
These assaults on officers are something which Chief Constable Alan Pewsley of Kent Police is very aware of.
My officer's been spat at, which I think is appalling. Being kicked, being punched and being assaulted in that manner. So low-level physical assault and physical injuries, but mentally quite traumatic. All the way up to officers who are currently sick with serious injuries to their legs, broken limbs. At the very top end, people desperately trying to and carrying out knife attack on my officers, all the way down to the equally, on occasion, appalling the impact on the officer when somebody spits into their face, when they may or may not have contagious diseases, is disgusting. I'm just really disappointed with society that criminals think it's okay to assault a police officer. No, it isn't. It just isn't.
While the police regularly face all kinds of violent assaults, one of the most vile attacks is spitting.
Last year, I was spat at twice, and that was the third time in 2 years. Spitting's probably the worst one. I think every police officer would say that they'd rather be hit than spat at. It's the testing afterwards, essentially, is the pain of it all. And it's hospital. It's 3 blood tests over the space of 6 months. Your initial one, your 3-month one, the 6-month one. And it's making sure you're just disease-free, basically. That's the worry of it all. It's just horrible. There's no other way of describing it, really. It's just a personal low. For someone to do that to you, it's not exactly great.
In one shocking and disgusting case, a Derbyshire police officer records on her body-worn camera as an offender spits at her a total of 24 times. The offender had been arrested and was being escorted to hospital. Spitting is considered a common assault in the UK and can be penalised with a fine, a community order, or even a prison sentence of up to 6 months.
Spitting at police officers is something that's sadly not new. It's something that we've had to contend with. There are these vile, disgusting creatures out there who they resort to spitting at police officers rather than get arrested. I mean, they'll even go so far as to chew the inside of their mouth, create blood, and spit it in the face of a police officer. These are the sort of individuals we're having to deal with.
In this footage from 2017, 2 police officers in a Bristol hospital are attempting to restrain an offender. When told to calm down, he responds by spitting at one of the police officers.
Calm yourself down. No! Do not spit! You're under arrest for assault, police.
Probably the most intrusive is the spitting. It's a disgusting thing to happen. You know, I myself have had it where you've been spat at and it's hit you in the face and you've been spat blood at, you know, during an incident where someone's been assaulted and they spit at you. And normally they know what to say. I have a certain medical disease, I've got a certain condition. Yes, there's the physical and it's not nice, but actually I think in essence it's more the mental aspect as well, because you'd look at spitting and you'd say it's not nice, it's disgusting. But you can, you know, in essence you can wipe it away. For me, it's the mental side and the bits that, you know, you're always thinking until you know.
Sergeant Sean Underwood has been a police officer in Bristol for 17 years.
I've always wanted to be a police officer from the age of about 13 when a local policeman came into the school and talked to us, and that's why I wanted to join the police. I still love my job. It's very difficult. It seems to get more difficult. There's certainly elements of the job now that are a lot more difficult than they were when I joined. Some days it can be very, very frustrating and very upsetting, some of the stuff we have to deal with, but overall I think the positives and what we can do for people outweighs that.
In his long career with the police, there isn't much that Sean hasn't seen. However, 3 years ago, he was at the receiving end of a shocking attack.
We had a call to a male who was on Stokes Croft in Bristol, being aggressive. When we first arrived, we had to try and keep everyone safe and try and control him and calm him down. We couldn't calm him down, he just wasn't seeing reason, he was still being aggressive. We had to take him down to the floor to try and safely restrain him in handcuffs to stop him hurting us and himself, in fairness, because he was flying himself around, he quite easily could have got hurt himself. And then we had to carry him to the police van, which is when the incident itself happened. As he was shouting, screaming, turned, looked at me in the face and just a big spit came out of his mouth and straight into mine. Your immediate reaction is to just spit and drop and just try and get the horrible stuff out of your own mouth. But we were obviously carrying him at the time as well, so we couldn't just drop him. He was taken to the floor again just so we could sort ourselves out and I could try and get it out of my system, if you like, as soon as I could. I didn't want to catch anything contagious that he may have had. I didn't want that in myself, obviously. I didn't want to pass any risk on to my family as well. I had a young family at home, a wife and 2 young children that I didn't want to go home and then start giving them a goodnight kiss and pass anything on. It was a real worry that what my kid's going to get from this. So I ended up going to my GP the next day for various tests. I did get the all clear and I didn't need any long-term medication. I didn't contract anything. Looking back, I still worry that what could have happened, I think, more than anything else, and what could have been.
This offender pleaded guilty to assaulting a police officer and also a separate earlier assault on a member of the public. He was sentenced to 12 weeks in prison and ordered to pay £50 compensation to Sean.
The average member of the public wouldn't know what we go through on a daily basis sometimes, and what all emergency services workers go through sometimes, which is just the most disgusting behaviour and the most vile scenes and incidents that, unless you've been through it, you wouldn't know how it felt.
And in this footage from 2019, it's a British Transport Police officer who is the victim as he arrests an offender at York Railway Station for being drunk and disorderly on a train. The offender was found guilty of being drunk and disorderly and assaulting an emergency service worker. He was given a 12-week suspended sentence, 100 hours of community service, and ordered to pay £150 in fines. But police officers do have a piece of kit to protect them against this particular form of attack, a restraint device known as a spit hood. Essex Police introduced the tactic in 2017.
We've got the spit hood, which has been recently introduced into Essex, and this obviously looks to prevent offenders from spitting at colleagues. It's placed over the offender's face. As you can see with the meshing, it still allows the offender to be able to breathe as they would normally, but with the film and obviously the meshing inside, it stops that spit from coming out. We will find officers that are spat at, but what we are able to do now is we can get that on very quickly. We can actually sometimes stop any assaults. There's no detrimental effect to the offender because of the way it's been produced. It's only ever going to be used where that threat has been made by the offender, or the offender has already carried out the threat on another officer. It looks funny, it doesn't look commonplace, but remember, we will only use the equipment that we've been given when and justified to do so.
Although these guards are controversial, they are only used when an offender starts spitting, to protect everyone around from contracting infectious diseases.
Since anti-spit guards have come in, we've definitely got better equipment now than what we had before. I'm not sure, equipment-wise, what else we could have that would make a massive amount of difference to what we do day to day. The anti-spit guards were massive, really. That was the one big thing that we were missing out on.
Ambulance crews were often on the front line in the fight against coronavirus. And although the South West suffered fewer cases and fatalities than other parts of the country, it was a very stressful period for paramedics.
It was an incredibly difficult time for everybody, working alongside our crewmates, going home to our family, our patients. Everyone was worried because no one knew exactly what was going to happen, how you got it, and how it was transmitted, and what would happen when you did. We were just following the guidance, and we were just watching the news the same as everybody else, just wondering what tomorrow was going to bring. The numbers were scary, and people were dying all over the place, and it was a terrible thing to see and a terrible thing to be part of.
But as well as fear of the virus itself, ambulance crews faced an increase in aggression from the general public. South Western Ambulance Service experienced 290 violent incidents, including 46 physical assaults during the first 10 weeks of lockdown.
I think that we expected everybody to be calmer and more respectful of the emergency services. But what actually happened was people got a lot more anxious, and in their anxiety, that a lot of times has turned to aggression. Within the Southwest, we had somewhere around about a 46% increase in numbers of crews who are abused or attacked, up from around about 190 up to 290 over exactly the same period during the lockdown. We've had a number of our colleagues who have had everything from being punched, kicked, and most recently stabbed. So that's a horrible thing to have to endure as an emergency service worker. It's not what you expect to happen. And certainly when you're trying to help people through what is a particularly worrying time for everybody, not just the normal patients we would go to, but people who are just trying to get on with their lives.
The rise in attacks on emergency staff is something that Mark had his own personal experience of in May this year, in the midst of the lockdown.
We were at Dawlish Ambulance Station awaiting our next job when we got a call to ask us to assist police in the local town centre. We attended to find the police were restraining a gentleman in the middle of the high street. We got out of the ambulance and approached them, and they asked us to assess this gentleman as they wished to take him into custody. At the time, he seemed quite compliant. He was laughing almost. And so we didn't see any great problems occurring. We couldn't predict what was going to happen next. We asked police if we could take him into the back of the ambulance for his privacy and also so we could assess him properly. We took him in there, and in order to assess him properly, what we really wanted to do was take his handcuffs off. Everything was absolutely fine, and we were all chatting and everything seemed to be good. Then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, the gentleman just went mad. He just started lashing out, punching and kicking. The police officers had to try and restrain him, get the handcuffs back on him, and also leg restraints as he was lashing out to the foot of the ambulance where my colleague was standing. And at that moment in time, I saw him get a mouthful of saliva, and it was clear his intention was to spit at me. And as he did so, luckily, I managed to sidestep him. But before I could actually restrain him, he went and spat again, but this time at the police officer, and he hit him in the arm. I had the gentleman restrained by his head on the stretcher, and the police officers got a spit hood, which they put over him, which stopped him from actually aiming any more spit at us. I've never been spat at before, fortunately, so it was a hell of a shock. It's really just vile. It's a horrible thing. You know, I wouldn't do it to my worst enemy, frankly, and so for someone I've never met to spit at me, it's just disgusting.
Mark was fortunate to escape the worst of this attack, but his colleague from Devon and Cornwall Police wasn't so lucky.
I felt extremely bad for the policeman who was spat on because he was hit worse than I was. Obviously, because of the COVID situation, there is always a worry that any bodily fluids you get on you can cause you problems. I personally didn't have any residual effects, but what did bring it back into focus was family and friends who found out about the situation and just were so shocked. It made me realise that, you know, yeah, this was a pretty bad thing to actually happen.
The offender was convicted of assaulting 2 emergency service workers and being drunk and disorderly in a public place. He was sentenced to 22 weeks in prison.
It's a terrible shame that someone's being sent to prison. That's not something that I like at all, but it sends a very clear message to people that assaulting emergency service workers is a completely unacceptable thing to do.
The attack has changed Mark's perception of his own role and how he feels the public views the emergency services.
It's been a strange experience seeing a rise in attacks on emergency service workers over the period of COVID. It doesn't make any sense to me, if I'm completely honest. I don't understand why people will assault people who are there just to help them. It doesn't matter whether it's police, fire, ambulance, Coast Guard, anybody. We're there to help you. Why would you attack us? Makes no sense to me.
Mark is determined to take something positive from his experience, and he has become involved in a campaign to raise awareness on attacks on emergency service workers.
It's made me look closely at the campaign which the emergency services, ambulance service, police, fire and everybody else has got involved with, which is called the Unacceptable campaign. This campaign is designed to educate people and to try and encourage people to think about things before they would consider abusing or assaulting an emergency service worker. There's absolutely no reason to do so. It is completely unacceptable. What we're hoping is that by people being punished, people will think about this longer and harder. What we really want to do is stop this abuse, stop the verbal abuse, stop the physical abuse from happening at all. It should never happen.
"2020 has been an exceptionally difficult year for police and paramedics. And while there were a few exceptions, the overwhelming public response has been to cooperate and assist our emergency service workers in their attempts to control and police the pandemic.
When you read some of the headlines, some public might think that the police are there arresting almost everybody and putting them all in prison for breaching the rules of lockdown. In reality, our main focus was about educating and informing the public about what their responsibilities were. And there were occasions where we had to issue fines. The vast majority of the public, it was just words of advice, if that was needed at all. I still believe passionately that the vast majority of the public understood what we were trying to do. We were just trying to keep people safe. It's not about living in a dictatorial environment where we're telling everybody what to do. It's just about making sure that we don't, start seeing an increase in people dying again from this horrible, horrible disease.
999ers risk their lives every day keeping us safe.
For putting yourself out there to help other people at their most precious time of need.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
Their house is on fire and they're attacking us.
I was standing up with her hands around my throat.
No. These personal attacks on police, paramedics and firefighters are at an all-time high.
He's telling me I'm going to kill your wife and I'm going to kill your family and I'm going to kill you.
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
How do you come to terms with knowing that you can't go and do the job that you love?
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice, our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
We kept people safe, we put away the bad guys.
I'm not going to let some man ruin it for me. This is my future, this is what I enjoy doing.
Ready to face the next critical incident. Coming up, Kent police officers risk their lives to rescue a man clinging onto a cliff face.
We realised the danger of the situation and the fact that he could fall to his death.
West Midlands police track down a man in possession of a gun.
Stay there, show me around.
We are seeing more gun crime, but it is a trend that we need to nip in the bud.
And how man's best friend came to play an essential role in British policing, tracking down criminals and protecting their handlers.
You're under arrest, come out!
Can all officers start making to the general location, please, to assist with this officer in need?
The role of a police response officer is varied and unpredictable. Often, when other agencies are unable to respond, the police are called upon to fill the vacuum.
Policing is really complex, and you will have different areas of policing dealing with different things. So you'll have detectives working on the more complex types of crimes. But then you'll have response officers and the response officers are being deployed to whatever 999 calls come in. Anything and everything.
In Merseyside, police have been involved in a high-speed pursuit of a suspected stolen car that failed to stop.
Yes, affirmative. I'm looking to see if possibly to go in.
In an attempt to evade capture, the driver of the car has driven into a reservoir and a police helicopter with heat-seeking cameras on board has been deployed.
Well, just for your info, he's trying to get himself off the driver's window now.
As the car begins to sink, the man is seen waving frantically, appealing for help.
Charlie Mike 35, do you need any more patrols up there? Charlie Mike, I think it's going to be a negative at this stage. Bear with us.
Trying to get out of this, just making things easier for him if he can see what he's doing.
Showing incredible bravery, 5 officers wade into the deep water to pull the individual to safety. With the vehicle almost fully submerged, the man has to be rescued through the rear hatch.
So I'll just let you know your officer's now got this lad out of the car.
Yeah, confirm the male is now out of the vehicle.
Yeah, he's out of the vehicle now, being walked towards the bank.
The suspect was later arrested. Thanks to these 5 brave officers, he survived uninjured.
Every day I read about incredible acts of bravery. It's not all over the news headlines. I think it's important that the public understand the level of courage, bravery, thankless sacrifice that goes on with policing every day. And that sounds dramatic, but that's so true.
It's late afternoon in Manchester, and the police have received a call that someone has been spotted in the freezing water of a canal. 3 officers are quickly on the scene, but the individual is drifting dangerously towards an unlit tunnel, and they need to act fast. Brave officer PC Briggs has jumped into the canal and is swimming towards the individual. Once reached, PC Briggs brings the individual back to shore, and officers standing at the side of the canal pull them both to safety.
Let go, let go. Come on, to the side. Come on. Right side and get off this. Right, Jack. Right side and get off this. Come here. It's fine for me. Come here.
The individual was treated by paramedics before being transferred to hospital to receive further treatment.
Come on, mate.
In March 2020, police officers in Northfleet in Kent got a stark reminder of the unpredictability of their role. They were involved in a dramatic rescue, which was captured on one of their body-worn cameras.
Watching that back, you can hear in the pitch of our voices as well when we were sort of getting desperate and we thought that he wasn't going to make it. We didn't really think about it at the time, but afterwards you're like, well, that actually just happened.
PC Jodie Tubby has been a frontline police officer with Kent Police for over 5 years.
On that particular day, I was on routine patrol, so I started my shift at 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
Also on duty that day were PC's Dave Gillen and Matt Smith.
We received a call on our radio to say that they'd received a call from a distressed male. Myself and my colleague drove around the area trying to locate the male. We were aware that he had a high visibility jacket on, which made it slightly easier to try and find him.
Did an area search for the male. We weren't searching for too long. There was a number of us that went to it.
The team's search for the man in distress focused on an old quarry, which was now a building site.
Our attention was drawn across the valley, or a quarry, to luminous yellow in the distance, and that's when we spotted that the male was hanging off of the cliff face in a quarry.
With the man's life clearly in danger, the team had no time to waste. But first they had to access the quarry.
We weren't able to get to him from where we were, so I used my knowledge of the local area to try and navigate us to exactly where I thought he would be.
When we got to the location where we identified the male was, we went down a small alleyway between a couple of houses, and then through an overgrown area at the back of the houses, and then had to climb over a wall. We could hear the male shouting for help, which is what sort of directed us directly to him.
And that's when we saw the male was hanging onto the edge of the quarry about 6 foot down from where we were stood.
Keep holding on, mate.
The situation, obviously, we had a lot of obstacles in our way, and the severity of the situation made it, very stressful. I climbed over a member of the public's garden onto a wall, which then led us onto the edge of the cliff face. It was sort of quite overgrown, quite a lot of rubble and debris there, and lit up, and where it's quite a disused area, so it's quite unstable. So initially, when I stepped over the wall onto the edge of the cliff face, I did freeze for a couple of seconds. I sort of took a breath and realised how high the drop was, how unstable the cliff edge was. I sort of had to clamber over different bits of debris and rubbish, sort of crawl over to the male. And at that moment, I thought, this is pretty dangerous. It would just take one wrong move or for me to slip. The adrenaline was pumping. I was in fear. It was quite unstable edge, but I just put that to one side because I knew that his life was at risk and that if anything did happen to him, I wouldn't want that on my conscience.
I didn't think about the height or falling or anything myself at the time, but looking back on it, it was a fair height, and we were very close to the edge, but didn't realise that at the time.
Hold on, mate. Hold on.
When I looked over, when we first got there, the male was clinging onto the wire that holds the rocks in place. And down below him was quite a lot of like building rubbish, quite a lot of debris and that down there from the site.
The male was clinging onto the quarry, hanging onto chicken wire over the quarry, which was around 70 or 80 foot drop. It was a building site below him, so it was gravelly, hard concrete. We realised the danger of the situation and the fact that he could fall to his death. So I was trying not to rush and make any rash decisions because I needed to be calm. At the same time, I was trying to update the control room to let them know what was happening so that I could get additional resources en route, so to get Kent Fire and Rescue en route, because I knew that that was time critical and I didn't have any time to waste.
Back at base, Inspector Jamie Little was in constant radio contact, providing support and advice for his colleagues.
I became aware from the radio message of the incident taking place, and I could hear over the radio what the officers were doing. There was no time for the fire brigade to arrive. There was no time for the ambulance service to arrive. They had to act right there and then to save the man's life.
We knew we needed to get to him, but we couldn't physically. He was too far out of reach for us to grab him by hand. He was just clinging onto the wire, just with his fingers holding himself up.
My colleague had the idea of looping our belts together to try and hoist the male back up.
We looped our belts together and lowered them down just so the male had something to hold on to.
When I got there, Jodie and David had already started trying to help the man. I then worked out, essentially, if he did fall, someone's going to have to be at the bottom. So I started running across the top of the cliffs, trying to work my way down, jumped through a few gardens, jumped a few fences, and then made it back round to the bottom, which is through a construction site. Jumped over that, and then got to the bottom, where he was hanging off the cliff.
My colleague laid on the floor, lowered the belt down to the male, whilst I maintained communications with him, just to try and keep him busy.
You get a grip with your feet. I need you to get a grip with your feet.
I could hear Jodie's colleague shouting down. At one point, the chicken wire came pretty much away from the cliff face, so he did shout down to me, just to warn me what was going on.
Our belts are quite thin, so they weren't strong enough to be able to pull him back up to the top, but they were enough to be able to stabilise him for a moment. I then realised that that wasn't enough and that we was going to have to come up with another contingency because that wasn't working.
I need you to get a grip with your feet.
Later, the team come up with a new plan to try and save the man's life.
We knew we needed something longer to be able to reach him.
I then maintained communication with him to keep him talking so that he didn't lose sight of what we were trying to do.
That's the one. Good lad.
Down.
Police forces all over the UK consider dogs not just as their best friends, but as a vital tool in law enforcement. Police dogs are commonly used in searching for drugs and explosives, helping to locate missing persons, finding crime scene evidence, and protecting their handlers when faced with dangerous situations.
Good lad.
The use of dogs for police work was pioneered in Germany and France in the early 1900s. The first police dogs in the UK went into service in the docks in Hull in 1908. It wasn't until the 1920s that other police forces became interested in the use of police dogs, and in 1938, 2 Labradors began patrolling the streets of London. After World War II, the training of police dogs became professionalised, and by 1960, British Transport Police had up to 75 dogs in use.
This intelligent dog is obviously becoming teacher's pet.
Today, the value of the police dog is undisputed, to the extent that there are now over 2,500 police dogs employed across the UK, constantly sniffing out danger and tracking down criminals. This footage shows just how effective the police dog can be. Police dogs are trained to pick up the scent of suspects from their last known location. The dogs are taught to eliminate other scents and track the criminal. In this instance, the police dog, called Blue, is tracking down a man who is wanted for several motoring offences. It soon becomes apparent that Blue is on the right track.
Zulu Delta 44. Mal was dumped a black jacket in the bushes. Good boy. Come on. Where is he? Where is he? Don't let me down.
Substation on it. The dog aim is crossing the road directly opposite there.
Crossing a busy road, it's not long before Blue has tracked down his target.
Right, police officer with the dog! I want to see your hands now! Get up out the bushes! You're under arrest! Come out! There's a helicopter with the dog, you're not going anywhere. All right? Come to me! Come to me!
The offender has no escape and eventually emerges from the bushes.
Come towards me! 4-4 is coming into the field with me. I need officers with me. One arrested. Okay, that's fine. Stop there and stay there.
After a search lasting around an hour and covering 2 miles of countryside, it's mission accomplished for Blue.
4-4, male detained in cuffs. Good boy.
Male detained in cuffs, all safe for them.
Good.
Impact 1-4, well done, dog. We're going to leave the scene.
The offender was convicted of 6 motoring offences. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and disqualified from driving for 3 years. Still to come, the clifftop rescue comes to a dramatic conclusion.
Get a grip on this now. Put your arm round it. Put your arm round it.
If the male had fallen, I doubt he'd have survived.
And how man's best friend helps emergency service workers recover from traumatic incidents.
He's my therapy dog. He's my best friend. Can you help?
Police officers have become accustomed to facing a variety of threats. But one of their worst fears is encountering an armed criminal, particularly if there is a gun present.
I think the use of firearms is always in a police officer's mind. You know, we've seen cases where officers have been murdered through the use of firearms, so it's always there. The criminal element who have weapons to commit crime, the risk is always there.
Over the past 5 years, offences involving a firearm increased by 27%, and last year there were more than 9,700 crimes involving firearms in England and Wales.
Policing itself and the National Crime Agency are all over this. We've made some big seizures of guns and weapons over recent months, and more work is going into that. And the consequences of having a firearm is quite severe.
In this clip, a suspected gunman has been spotted by plainclothes officers, and the West Midlands Police Firearms team is on the case.
Stay there! Hand! Stay there! Show me your hand!
The team catches up with the suspect and detain him, but there is no sign of a firearm. However, before long, a gun is spotted nearby. The bag found under the car contains a silver-loaded pistol. The gunman admitted possession of firearms and ammunition. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison.
We have ARVs, armed response vehicles, we have tactical firearms teams, we have highly trained firearms officers. They protect the public, but they protect my colleagues, because my colleagues will run towards danger. We are seeing more gun crime, certainly in some of the big city areas, but it is a trend that we need to nip in the bud.
Back in Kent, a team of police officers are attempting a highly dangerous rescue of a man clinging onto a cliff face in an old quarry.
Keep holding on, mate.
We're doing everything we can, mate. You hold on. Hold on. I've got belts.
So far, they've had to improvise by using their belts to stop the man from falling.
Our belts are quite thin, so they weren't strong enough to be able to pull him back up to the top. I then realised that that wasn't enough and that we was going to have to come up with another contingency because that wasn't working.
We knew we needed something longer to be able to reach him. Luckily, a resident nearby brought out a rope.
Right, wait, I've got some rope.
So I took that rope and looped it round a tree to make sure it was secure, and then handed it down to my colleague, who then told the male to grab hold of it. I then maintained communication with him to keep him talking, so that he didn't lose sight of what we were trying to do, and just to try and keep him calm whilst my colleague continued to try and pull him up.
Get a grip on this now. Put your arm round it. Put your arm round it. That's the one. Good lad. Good lad. No, hold the rope. Wrap your arm around that rope.
You get him off the rope. Keep going, don't
Keep going, come on.
Someone get hold of me,
Keep coming.
Get your hand.
When we pulled the male up to the top of the cliff, although he was holding onto the rope, I told him to take hold of my hand, which he did. I was then able to pull him onto the edge of the cliff.
Come on.
When he was brought up, when he was finally up with us, he was just relieved.
All of us, the male and my colleagues, we sort of just laid there for a second, just in disbelief of what had just happened, just took a moment and sort of held on to each other, knowing that we were all safe. He seemed relieved. He was very distressed.
Come on.
Well done. Well,
Obviously, it was an overwhelming situation for everybody, but he was very grateful for our help.
If the male had fallen, I doubt he'd have survived because of the height of the fall and what was below him.
Back in North Kent Police Station, the professionalism and bravery of the officers involved in this rescue has not escaped the attention of their superiors.
I think that incident and the body-worn footage highlights how varied, how wide the role of a police officer is. Fills me with pride to have those officers. They do their work. That wasn't an isolated incident, although the gravity of the incident doesn't happen every day. But those officers are going out there doing a variety of incidents, protecting the public every day. And I can trust them. I've got complete trust in what they do. I don't need to check their work. I know they're gonna perform for me and for Kent Police.
It was only when the team reviewed the body-worn footage of the incident that they fully recognised the enormity of what they had done.
When I watched the footage back, I was just proud of myself and my colleagues about how well we worked together. Without each of us doing those jobs, we wouldn't have been able to do the same thing or have the same outcome. Each of us was vital in our roles there. All of us had strengths in different areas there that we were able to utilise. So, for example, I know that my strength is talking to people, so I was the person that took on the role of speaking to the male and trying to keep him calm, whereas my colleague's good at the practical side of things. He was able to create the hoist and help bring him up. So, yeah, it was just nice to see how well we worked together. Overwhelming to see what had happened and to look at it from the top of the cliff and to see the drop and realise how dangerous it really was. When I stepped over the edge and for a few seconds I froze, but then the adrenaline kicked in. But I know once we'd actually gotten back up the top afterwards, when we went back to the car, I was shaking and I felt really cold. I think that was just the come down of adrenaline where, yeah, we didn't really think about it at the time, but afterwards you're like, well, that actually just happened.
It's not just humans that emergency service workers get called to rescue. In this footage, Shropshire Fire and Rescue Service has been called to assist a horse that has fallen into a trench. The horse, called Jeannie, has been sedated by a vet while the firefighters work alongside animal rescue volunteers to try and rescue her.
Just watch.
A harness is placed around the horse's body, and when the team is confident that everything is secure, a crane is deployed to hoist Jeannie out of the trench. Once back on firm ground, Jeannie is woken from the sedation. And though a little bruised and unsteady on her feet, she seems remarkably calm after this traumatic experience. In Wiltshire, police have received a call that a dog has been left in a car for a number of hours on a hot May day. Concerned for the dog's welfare, the police officer on the scene decides to smash the car window to free the dog.
Hello, buddy. Oh, I know. Come on.
On this particular day, it It was 21 degrees Celsius, but the temperature inside the car was in excess of 40 degrees. Although this time the dog survived unharmed, the owner was traced, advised about animal welfare, and agreed to donate £50 to charity. Police confirmed that the owner was very remorseful, and they had no other concerns about the dog. One of the most difficult parts of policing is its unpredictability.
Right, come in. Okay, I'm sorry.
Get out! All right, calm down.
Put the knife down, fella.
Policing is dangerous and it's unpredictable. Police officers see unimaginable things. They will have to deal with things that people shouldn't have to deal with. And, you know, despite the training, they're human beings.
For police officers Mark and Stuart of Merseyside Police, the unpredictability makes the job even more difficult.
All these houses here, all these different front doors right next to each other, you don't know what's going to present when you walk through that door. You literally don't. You get a little bit of a story and you go in, and as you go through that door, beyond that threshold, into that house, any number of things can happen from that given moment.
Police officers, very often now, they'll go to a traumatic incident, and I could give you a whole list of, you know, child deaths, hangings, suicides, the most horrific of things that you could be exposed to. That's been recognised now, and there's some really good work to try and recover that. But a lot of damage has been done.
Be mindful if you're driving around, keep your windows up in your cars.
Sergeant Tim Pottle, also of Merseyside Police, is keenly aware of the trauma that he and his team face on a daily basis.
As of the 1st of November. Last year I went to a sudden death of a child, and I found myself afterwards in the ambulance with the ambulance crew, and we were all crying, and we cried for five minutes. And it's a very human emotion, but not one that people expect to see. The emergency services try and do the best job, and they always do the best job while it's occurring. The emotion afterwards, you can't ignore it, and if you try and ignore it, you become unwell.
Up until recently, we hadn't really acknowledged the psychological impact that policing can have on people. So a number of initiatives have been brought into policing. I think it was recognised some time ago that actually police officers are not robots. They're people and with feelings, and there will come a point where you can only absorb so much trauma.
When alcohol is added to the mix, police work can be even more unpredictable. West Midlands Police in Birmingham need to be constantly on their guard when policing the nighttime economy.
It can get quite hairy. It comes in peaks and troughs, so it depends. It's the kicking out times around about the 3s and 4s are when it becomes really sort of hairy, because you can have hundreds of people being kicked out of the clubs at one time, and then you've got hundreds of members of the public on the street, and a few too many drinks here and there, and people can, a few little disorders can start, so you have to really be on the ball and keep your eye out for stuff that might start. You have to be really careful about what's going on in the background, so you have to be aware of where your colleagues are and who's where and what they're doing and what they're dealing with, because any job, no matter how small, if they're dealing with, you know, some drunk female or something, for example, if it's so, you know, if she wishes, she could turn and she could end up striking an officer, and then you might have a mass disorder because that might be a relation to somebody who's nearby, or you just don't know. From job to job, you've just got to expect the unexpected, really. But the fear is, if people have had one too many drinks and it goes off, there's the potential for people to get harmed. And obviously, we don't want that at all.
Well, she literally went from being really nice to something.
One person who has been the victim of an attack while patrolling the streets at night is Inspector Sarah Sleeman.
He's nice.
It's Saturday night, and Sarah and her team of officers are preparing to go out on patrol.
That female on there was terrible last week. She had to be held. She was still being held down at 5 o'clock.
Policing the nighttime economy is unnerving for Sarah because of a horrific attack she suffered in 2015.
Because the person who attacked me from behind, I'm very nervous if people come up from behind me, so if anyone does, I have to sort of turn around and speak to them and make sure they're just going to pass me by rather than, knock me in the head again. I obviously think back to that incident and what could happen, so I'm more wary of people, and I act differently now to how I used to. I'm sort of aware that how quickly things can change, because it can go from being, just stood out there to being unconscious on the floor within seconds.
Sarah's ordeal began when she was investigating a disturbance outside a nightclub. The incident was picked up on CCTV.
As I was walking away, one of the males hit me in the side of the head. And then the next moment, I woke up and I was on the floor. I put my hand onto my head and looked at my fingers and said to my colleague, I think I'm bleeding. And then she was panicking, and that was making me get more and more panicked.
Sarah was rushed to hospital, where doctors discovered a serious head injury.
They found a cut on my head, and I had it glued because it was like a moon shape. So it was all the way down to my skull, but it was in a moon shape, so they were able to stick it back down. Since after the event, I learned that he had a mobile phone in his hand. He came up behind me and, from the side and hit my head with it in his hands.
The offender was convicted of actual bodily harm. He was sentenced to 9 months in prison, suspended for 18 months. After just a month off work, Sarah returned to the job she loves. And thankfully tonight, she and her colleagues face no serious issues, and the streets of Gloucester are peaceful and quiet.
Yeah, it's been good. The people out are really friendly, and we've been speaking to people from students to people celebrating their 50th birthday. So it's, it's a diverse of people out tonight. So it's just been really good and really good fun. So really enjoyed it.
When I speak to officers who've been so badly injured, attacked violently, who thought they were going to die, and they were saying, I don't want any fuss, I was doing my job. You don't join the job to be a millionaire, far from it. You join the job to make a difference. They keep people safe, they save lives, they prevent crime, and, that's something to be proud of.
Behind every uniform, there is a support network. And sometimes this comes in the form of a four-legged friend. Meet the dogs who help our emergency service workers de-stress after a busy shift or provide TLC after a traumatic event. Numerous studies are being carried out on the relationship between animals and humans and the positive effect animals can have. Studies show that just petting animals can raise the levels of the hormones oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, which play a part in improving mood. Paramedics Nick and Katie from the Welsh Ambulance Service were assaulted when they were trying to assist a patient.
He woke up and started punching and throwing hits and caught me in the chest.
He sort of sat up and then he punched me clean in the face. My glasses were broken, my face had been swollen, my lips, and he shook me up.
Following the attack, as well as support from the Welsh Ambulance Service and their families, Katie and Nick found solace in their pets.
Albie, come on in, Ob. Coming in.
A recent Blue Cross survey found that households with a dog or a cat are happier than those with no pets. Studies show that petting a dog is relaxing, slows down breathing, and lowers blood pressure and heart rate.
Give me paw, yeah. He's my therapy dog. Looks after me, makes me happy. Albie he's been marvellous. He's been brilliant. He's my best friend. Isn't he, Alb? I just love him now.
26% of the UK adult population have a dog, with an estimated population of 9.9 million pet dogs. Being a dog owner means that you are more likely to keep up exercise, which again has an impact on well-being.
Yeah, it doesn't come back.
Often me and my husband go for a walk together and we might discuss things that have gone on. But a lot of the time as well, I'll just go on my own. I'll just take my dogs, off we go, 2 hours later, come back feeling really refreshed and quite de-stressed from the day and what's gone on. It makes me feel so much better just being able to walk it off. Walk it away, think, put it all into perspective, put it all away, and move on.
When I was attacked and I wasn't feeling too good, but Albie was here that day and he just gives me all the love and attention that I need, and it takes my mind off what was going on. And so yeah, he's good for me. You know, it's just a lot to take in sometimes when you come home and you may have dealt with a young child's death or something, but Albie doesn't know all that, but he's just there, he just gives me love, and I wouldn't be without him now. He's been good for me in more ways than that anybody would realise. Albie is my therapy dog.
Your therapy dog?
Oh my God, yeah. I absolutely love him to bits. He's so good to me. He's about the only thing that actually likes me and loves me.
Someone's got to.
Former police officer Simon Mudge was diagnosed with complex PTSD after suffering several attacks, culminating in a brutal attack at a music festival in 2003.
I'd had several times in the job where I'd been assaulted quite badly, and I've always thought I'll come out the other end of it. But on that day, I thought that was it. I thought my 9 lives had run out.
Pets are linked to lots of physical health benefits, such as lowering blood pressure and improved recovery from heart surgery. But most importantly for Simon, they are also linked to improving mental health.
It's probably only been the last 6 months that he's sort of turned a corner there and realised that actually he's got a life and he's got a purpose that isn't just being a police officer. His moods go from being really, really low to feeling okay and sort of really happy because he's with the girls, or we're out doing something, or, you know, even walking the dog.
Simon's dog Monty has been a major part of his recovery.
Monty really is a therapy dog for me. There's nothing better than when you're having a bad day, sitting there in front of the TV, just watching a film with him on your lap, and say, normally stay still and for a couple of hours and goes to sleep.
Leaving the house can be challenging for Simon due to his PTSD, but Monty's always there to provide encouragement.
Monty helps me get out of the house every day. It's a routine that I can get in, taking him out for a walk, and stops me sort of getting trapped in the 4 walls of the house. He's been such a great help to me. I find that I can relax better with him around. He knows when I'm having a bad day, and he'll sit there and just go to sleep on my lap, and there's nothing better than stroking a pet to calm you down. Monty means the world to me, he really does.
Therapy dogs are regular visitors to the Police Treatment Centre in Harrogate, a charity which provides intensive treatment for injured, ill and retired police officers. PC Claire Bond is recovering from horrific injuries after being rammed by a criminal driver. Today, she is benefiting from a visit by a therapy dog. These dogs are trained to interact with a variety of people. Their job is to help reduce stress and provide comfort to service users.
You'd automatically want to hone in and give him a good old, put your arms around his neck and give him a good old cuddle. That's the initial thought when you walk in. And then The kindness that you see in his face.
He's just started doing this.
Okay.
This is his first official visit.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
He's only very young, but he's doing very well. He's learning. And,
Yeah.
I know he's got a lovely temperament. So, you know, after a while, what the temperament's like, but we socialise him a lot to go out and into town and things like that to meet other people and dogs. Yeah. And you get an idea from the word go if they're going to be all right to do this. Yeah. They're very de-stressing. You can't argue with a dog and they give you unconditional love.
Yeah. You don't have to have anything to say. You just sit here and cuddle, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Yes, you're a good boy. I know.